this, I think, is what's terrifying governments around the planet. And we see the saber rattling. We see the police state installed across the planet. You think that's just because random terrorism? No way. They knew this was coming, so they were going to preemptively put a police state in so when there's food riots in the cities, they can control it. Adapt 2030 Mini Ice Age Conversations covers changes in our climate due to a new and intensifying grand solar minimum. In the media, overlooking, downplaying, or burying cold weather changes occurring on our planet. This is in order to keep the global warming agenda steaming full speed ahead. I do this podcast and radio program because we need to begin conversations on how to adapt our food growing strategies long before 2030 as agricultural zones shift, affecting global crop output, but very few mainstream media outlets are talking about the most important issue of our time: cold weather crop losses. Our sun is going through a 400-year cycle, which has effects on our weather patterns as our magnetosphere weakens and the jet streams go out of flow. It's not CO2, it's not you, it's the sun. Are you ready to thrive in the grand solar minimum? Then join me for Mini Ice Age Conversations. I'm your host, David Dubine. So if you're going to reset a society and you understand a society reset button is on our doorstep, the amount of people that are going to be lost during this event would be enough where they could restart the economy again and control the population much more easily, and probably round people up and put them into cities. There's a method behind the madness here. Now, this continuity of government thing, it's not for you, it's for them. And when I say them, I'm talking about the elite and these sociopaths that run our current governments, want to stay in power, and they'll do anything they can. They're sociopaths. They really don't care about you. They don't even care about themselves. It's a dogfight in the dogfight inside there. So anybody that thinks they have a seat at the bunker, yeah, right, they might just lock you out because you're a threat to their power when they come back. So, all these people who feel that they're going to, I'm so powerful, I'm going to get a seat in the bunker. A lot of them are probably just being used and they'll be tossed out on the street. And that'll be interesting too, to see the power elite that get tossed out that thought they had a seat in the bunker get thrown back out in the public and then try to re-evolve their own kind of style of government that you have to worship me again. You have to believe what I say. You have to follow what I say because I'm a politician. And I could already see this happening around 2023. So look for the timeline. 2021 is when the world wakes up for sure. By that point, the world will absolutely be awake. And this is when everybody will start running for the same supplies. So again, like I said, if you are not getting ready now, you're not going to have time to, because you have less than a year and a half before the entire planet wakes up. And this, I think, is what's terrifying governments around the planet. And we see the saber rattling. We see the police state installed across the planet. You think that's just because random terrorism? No way. They knew this was coming, so they were going to preemptively put a police state in so when there's food riots in the cities, they can control it. They have all the facial recognition and cameras. They know who's moving where. They have all of you tracked across your social media as well as your credit card spending habits. They'll know who's buying, who's preparing. They know everything about you on the social media, so they'll know who will possibly prepare even if you're using cash and who won't, just based on their social media profiles, what kind of information they follow inside the social media news feeds, things they post. Like, this has all been one giant setup since the year 2000 to get us ready to this time, because I'm absolutely sure now, I'm very 1,000% convinced that they knew these changes were coming and they were trying to preemptively get everything ready to control the masses when it happened. If you're looking for these obscure answers of why is there a police state everywhere, it just makes no sense. Why do they want to control all the citizens? Well, there's your answer. And I'm sure there's probably a few other levels deep in the onion that I'm not even thinking about. Somebody was talking to me about fourth dimensional entities feeding off your fear. Like, if it is true, and I understand there's dimensionality, and I understand there's different vibrational frequencies and wavelengths where beings can exist in other dimensions on top of us. And if you thought changes like these were limited to today's world, the fate of Rome, climate, disease, and the end of an empire. This book is a sweeping new history of how climate change and disease helped bring down the Roman Empire. An interweaving grand historical narrative with climate science, the fate of Rome was decided not by emperors, soldiers, and barbarians, but also volcanic eruptions, solar cycles, climate instability, and devastating viruses. From Rome's pinnacle in the 2nd century, when the empire seemed invincible as a superpower, to its unraveling by the 7th century, when Rome was politically fragmented and resource depleted. Empire could no longer withstand the combined challenges of a grand solar minimum and recurrent outbreaks of bubonic plague. And if you want to support this broadcast, click the link below in the description box to The Fate of Rome, Climate, Disease, and the End of an Empire, available in both paperback and Kindle versions. Your clicks keep this broadcast on air. Thanks for the support. Because you have to realize as a human, your vision is, you're only seeing 1% of everything that's available to be seen out there. I wish we had like infrared vision. That'd be real cool because we could see at night and we could see things around us. How about gamma ray vision? How about just plain night vision? What about your ears, auditory senses? We're only hearing approximately 1% of what we can possibly hear as well through the different frequencies. I mean, this is for us to be able to not be overloaded. Obviously, your sensory, it'd be too much. It's like going to India. You get overloaded there. So think about what other kind of entities are around us. If it is true in these reports that I keep getting of people writing going, dude, they're at the feeding trough. Imagine what kind of incredible, massive influx of these kind of dark energies who've been there feeding off of us if we truly come into this time where the main purpose of governments is to keep people unprepared, and when their realization of they're not prepared, how much fear, anger, animosity, hatred that's going to generate. It would be the largest feeding fest ever because there's the most people on the planet ever. Like I could see entities just dropping in to feed off the energy. Well, that's a whole nother gamut of level of the onion. I'm talking about more the physical stuff here in terms of preparation. I'm really hoping that new technologies will be unveiled during this time as well. We could use magnetic motors. Now let's get into some. I want to come into the forecast here. Wintry weather lingering over, well, they say some remote corners of the country, everywhere from Montana to Colorado, all the way up to Maine. Also, there's so many places that keep setting all these records. Like Caribou, Maine, this is a good example here. The most consecutive days of snow on the ground. 163 consecutive days. Marquette, Michigan, Upper Peninsula. It's the most days ever recorded with temperatures under 60 degrees Fahrenheit. They're up on like 199 days now of temperatures below 60 degrees Fahrenheit. And all these record snows that keep pervading the planet this late in the northern hemisphere, and also the early, incredible earliest snows ever recorded in Western Australia with that record snow down there too, and record cold. It's just all around us, these signs. And people would say, oh, you're cherry picking one place, you're cherry picking another place. Well, I don't know how many cherry picking things you can do across, let's say, 5 continents. We won't include Antarctica. No, you can't use Antarctica, that doesn't count. But when you go everywhere, including Chile getting record snow and record cold. Okay, so when you're getting a 5 out of 5 on continents with unusual cold weather and record everything either early or late, that's not cherry picking, man. That is absolutely a trend. If it was happening in one place on one continent, okay, I could give you that. It would be maybe a cherry pick. If everything else was blazing heat and you were pulling like one little tiny little place with one town that was record cold for 1 hour and then instantly it warmed up, and okay, that would be a cherry pick. But not all the continents having extreme weather that, in Africa, look at what's going on down there too. Since we're talking about heat here, I wanted to come up and the Met Office, this is in the UK, the Met Office issued the statement of the hottest Easter ever. Okay, first thing, we're going to talk about dates. Remember, Easter is not set on the same date every year. So when we go back to the last 155 years, it's only been 4 times that Easter has been this late on April 22nd over the last 100 plus years. So that is something to contend with itself. So the shocking headline, whoa, it's the warmest Easter ever. They pegged it on Easter to make it like super grandiose headline. Now let's forget Easter and just go back on the day of the year, April 22nd. Even back in 2011, it was 1.9 degrees Celsius higher at 26.9 back in 2011. Now I don't know how they missed that. That was just a few years ago. But then when we come back to 1949, it It was 29.4 degrees. 29.4, not 26.9, which happened in 2011. So somewhere along the way, they forgot 2 points in time on the same day that were warmer than what was recorded on the 22nd with the warmest Easter ever. Oh, and then they go down. Let me continue here. And then they said, let's talk about longer cycles in time. Now they're taking it back 208 years. So they go, let's go back 208 years on April 22nd. Only 12 times in the 208 years has Easter arrived on April 22nd. Then they jump back into. I like the way they did that. They went back a couple hundred years on that. So, where's the disconnect? How did the UK media not pick out their own record that occurred in 2011? That was only 8 years ago. And how did they miss the gargantuan 29.4 degrees in Cannon Square, London, 1949? How did they miss that too? So when you see this article come out, it's a purposeful ploy to try to get you to believe, again, that the global warming's here. You got to believe it. It's here. CO2 again. Made our Easter egg hunting sweaty. So the amount of fruit already, I was reading some reports, and Christian did a great job over an Ice Age Farmer talking about the fruit production in Europe, down 40% already this year. So if it's already down 40%, because we are reading article after article of fruit farmers and orchard managers saying they don't know if they can continue. This would be for stone fruits, things like peaches, that real hard stone seed in the center. Berries, blueberries, raspberry, different kind of farmers that farm berries, also in the same boat. They're like, we don't know if we can continue because it's just too absurd the weather. When we get up in Newfoundland, they're actually abandoning in agriculture, not only potatoes, but berry farming there because they just can't do it any longer. Literally, nature won't let them do it anymore. So we're already finding areas on the planet that are going offline for fruit growing this early in the game. And now all these late season freezes and delayed planting, and now it's getting to the grains. And if you're not aware of this, there's a concerted effort to keep you not aware. It's not just by random happenstance that you're not seeing this in your news feeds or on your evening news or talk show programs, except venues like this at freedomslips.com, Revolution Radio Studio A, 10 p.m. to midnight, Thursday evenings. David Dubine, your host, Mini Ice Age Conversations. I try to bring you this information weekly. Why am I doing it, but the corporate media that has millions and millions of dollars daily with staff of thousands and tens of thousands remains silent on the issue? You should also be asking that question. So let me throw another absurdity to you while we have a time here. If you're standing up, I would like you to sit down because this one will make you just roll over or maybe keel over after you hear the headline here. What could it possibly be? California restaurants to add a 1% surcharge tax on bills to combat climate change in extreme weather. Okay, that's an absurd headline in itself, but here's the part that's going to make you fall over. The money would be collected and turned over to the California Air Resources Board to be spent on projects. But there's no oversight committee with the California Air Resources Board to their projects, how they spend or how they fund those projects. None. So that money would be collected and thrown into an agency or a side slot of an agency that has no accountability to anybody in terms of accounting or expenditure. Can you believe that? So now this is very much what would happen with the CO2 global tax. They would skim your money, thieve your money, steal your money on a false premise of everything being warmed on the planet with CO2, although an enormous amount of cold events are happening. And that money would be put over to United Nations Fund to be overseen and spent any way they saw worthy to combat climate change. No accountability, no auditing, no transparency. And that would be $1 trillion plus a year going into the UN fund. Now, do you think anybody would be skimming off of that inside there? Not $1 billion. I'm not talking about 1,000,000 millions. I'm talking about $1 trillion per year or more would be diverted from your disposable discretionary spending, stolen from you in some fake tax, and then given to an agency that has no responsibility to even tell you what they're doing with the money. So $1 trillion, even if everybody involved in the program took $1 million, that would probably still leave $900 billion. Or even, let's say, 800 billion. What if they all took 5 million? That'd still leave $500 million. So everybody involved in the program would be, skimming money off the top, and that you can't say a thing. This is very much the same way here. That 1% surcharge, you have to realize how much revenue is generated in restaurants. I don't have the number, but in California, I'm sure it's an enormous amount. It's a huge state, massive tourism, 23, 24 million people, depends on how you count now. How many restaurants are there? How much money is flowing through that economy in terms of food and bev? Now, it doesn't really say if hotel catering events would be included in this. Let's say you're like IBM and you take a trip out for your top 500 salespeople and you rack up the bill and it's, $700,000 at the end of the week for all the events and catering, parties, and whatever it is. And then would that be charged at 1%? And that would still go to the undisclosed California Air Resources Board to spend on worthy projects. This is so in your face right now, and if people accept this, I absolutely think California should break off from the United States and become its own country, but leave the ports open because we built those with our tax dollars. You have to get import permits and tariffs for imported goods from the ports on California into California country. You need your own set of visas. You cannot come back into the United States without a visa. You have to apply for your own visas. If people do not stand up for this right here, you're done. You actually become a totalitarian state within the country. At that point, you're operating as your own government inside in a black budget, and you should be breaking away from the U.S. and continue to swivel in your own complacency at that point. Oh, and did I offend anybody? Too bad. Deal with it. If you're not going to deal with it and words hurt you, if you can't deal with the reality, you can't deal with reality. So I cannot believe that this climate surcharge is even getting some traction and people are really going to accept it. I'm beyond baffled, actually. The warmth that's being experienced in Alaska actually mimics what happened in the last grand solar minimum, at least the records they have for the Maunder minimum. That the Japanese current was warmer, there was a lot of ocean churning, uplifting, upwelling, currents changed. We're seeing the same exact thing. It's just a copy-paste. And I really hope people do kind of wake up and take a look, smell the coffee, if you will. There's so many signs going on. I'm going to jump over to icegenow.info here. Russia headlines. Record cold threatens crops. This comes from the Russian media translated article here. Such low temperatures in the south of Russia, and they're talking about 35 Fahrenheit below normal. Already there's active vegetated growth and periods of growth in the plants. Garden and blooming. Obviously they mean garden. Remember, this is a translated article using Google Translate here. So vegetated periods of plants, gardens are blooming, or blooming in the gardens. And the first crops are sprouting. Now this comes off Mateo TV, and they're explaining to the Russian citizens here that you need to protect your plants, and you need to get ready for more cold. And see, that's complete opposite of what the American media is doing, where they're saying, oh, everything's fine, it's going to get warmer in June. Don't worry about the record cold and the record snow. That's just normal. It was expected in global warming. But it's going to warm up in the summer sometime. So back to work, pay your taxes, don't ask questions, all right? See you on the backside of your football game. Well, the Russians are taking a very different approach and warning the people to come out and like, hey, something's very wrong with the climate right now, so get ready. Do you see the difference in the way the media is operating here? What is it about the Western American media, Canadian media, Australian media saying nothing's wrong, everything's good, cold will pass, back to work?